morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are listening to us today. Welcome to Footprints, a podcast of and by Civ Legacy Foundation. Civ Legacy Foundation is a non-profit expression of Civ Source Africa. One of the programs under the Civ Legacy Foundation is the Mutana Leadership Program. And within that, we have a program called Change Ready. Through this, we support leaders and organizations that are going through transition and succession moments. Footprints is about speaking with our elders who have gone before, who have traveled this journey of succession and transition, and they're now in a new season of their life. And so we're going to glean wisdom from their journeys of succession and transition. What were their fears? What were their hopes? How did they prepare? How did they not prepare? Maybe there were oopses along the journey. So those are the conversations we are going to have. And today our first guest, drum roll, is Reverend Benoni Mugarura Mutana, also fondly known as Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben, you're very welcome to Footprints.
Thank you.
Can you tell our audience who may not know who you are a bit about yourself? Who is Benoni Jack Mugarura Mutana?
Oh, I am, as you have said, Reverend Benoni, and if you like, you can add on Canon Benoni, Reverend Canon Benoni Mugarura Mutana. And I am a retired Anglican priest, having served in different positions along the way, until I retired in 2008. I had served both in the Church of Uganda, in the province, that is serving under the Archbishop, and I was serving in the youth department for quite some time. And then I was invited to serve in the Chapel of St. Francis at Makerere University, from where we retired. And so I'm from Kigezi. Now I don't know which district is.
I still come out. They've been split up so much.
Because Kigezi was split in Kabale, was split in Rukunjiri, and eventually Kabale and Rubanda districts and Ruchika district. But I come from Kabale district, from the village called Bukora. And among the people called the Abahesi. That is something about me, and I'm married. I'm married, and married to Joy, my dear wife, and God blessed us with 5 children, 3 girls and 2 boys. 3 girls. I am not saying women first, but God gave us women first. 3 girls and then 2 boys. And we have from them 5 grandchildren. Yeah, that is who I am.
That is who you are. So we are talking about leadership and transition. If I can call you Uncle Ben. When did you first become a leader? Or when did you first consciously call yourself a leader?
Consciously call myself a leader is a long time before. Before in my youth, when we were going to a church, when we were when we formed the church youth group, that's where I remember first, when we first formed the church youth group, because there were no youth group in our church before then. And
for history's sake, this is 19 when?
1950s, I think. But I can't know the date.
No, it's okay. 1950s is good enough.
Yeah. And that is when I discovered some leadership potential in me, leading young people, and we led one another, in particularly in performing something towards Christmas program. Then we would sing songs, and we would have drummers and things, and parents would come and see us. And that was part of the Christmas festivities that we had. So that is when I first discovered. But then later on, I went the age, different times. And in 1960s, I started training at Bishop Tucker College to be trained as a priest of the Anglican Church, as an ordained person. And then that time, the leadership had been developed in me, but I didn't know how to channel it. So I was always thought of as a rebel, as kind of a non-conformist. The lecturers we had at the time couldn't understand me very well, but I was most of the time interested in the culture of our people.
Yes.
And we the Bachiga never had a drum in our culture, except that the drum belonged to the gods. So we said Engoma. Engoma means the rulership of somebody that is in the leadership at that time. So when we, unlike the central people, the central Uganda people, who used drums to dance, and we didn't have any drums in our dancing. We danced according to the clapping of hands, and then when I went to Mukono, there was a drum, and I liked to play the drum to accompany the singing. But that was out of the normal, and then I was kind of disciplined for that. But that was planted in me, and to be developed later on in years.
Yes. It's very interesting that you say that you were very interested in culture. And for those who don't know, Uncle Ben has written a book about his life called Unlikely, and he describes some of this journey about being so in love with especially our musical expression through culture, and wanting to borrow from that richness and bring it into worship. It's also interesting that you said you're considered a rebel, and now I start to think about your 5 children, and now I can understand why we are the way we are. But a rebel in a good sense, because that meant you asked questions.
Yeah.
I think in the space of being a rebel comes innovation. Yeah. Let's try out things.
Try out.
Let's innovate. Let's create.
Yeah.
Let's mix the old and the new. Let's throw out what isn't working.
Yeah.
And that's part of being a leader, right? That's part of what leaders do. You go counterculture sometimes, or you you have to push.
Sometimes you have to push, especially when the I use the word organization, or the setting in which you find yourself is not moving.
Yes.
You have to push so that you can move something forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. When you look back, again, we are talking about a long arc of leadership. What stands out most in terms of a leadership, a moment that tested your leadership?
The moment that tested my leadership, when I was working as the provincial, as the national, they call it, so that it is understood, the national youth leader, and in that I was supposed to bring up youth leaders in the whole of Uganda, in the Church of Uganda particularly. I found resistance in a way that people were not willing to change. Because the church I was working in at that time was the church which emphasized the need to behave in the church as old people. So here you are faced with the young people, and you are supposed to make them behave like old people. It was very difficult to introduce that young people are young people.
Yes.
For goodness sake, young people are young people, and we have to take them as young people, because if we don't take them as young people, they will run away from the church. And that wasn't easy. That wasn't easy. That didn't augur well with the old church leaders. That was the first. The second was when we started the introduction of the music in the church that was not according to the music that was current in the church. Let me explain for those who may not know.
Yes.
The Church of Uganda is a traditional church. And as traditional, the Church of Uganda is basically Anglican. So as a traditional church, we use the hymns in worship. And that was the kind of music that you would practice a lot of time, and solfas, and try to sing in harmonies.
Yes.
That was supposed to be beautiful singing in worship. But here you are. I have been working with young people. I know that young people can sing in African style and with African music, and they enjoy worshiping God. How do you bring the two together in the worship?
Yes.
Especially when I came into St. Francis to be the chaplain of my career in university, to be the chaplain of the young people. The university is full of young people.
Yes.
And then you bring in the clapping of hands among the people who are used to stand straight and sing hymns. The clapping of hands, the using of the guitar. The guitar in worship? Yes, the guitar in worship. I was introducing something very different from what was used.
Yes.
And that was hard. But eventually, we got through.
You got through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you know you are working for God on God's side, you will get through.
You will get through. Wow. That's and I was listening to, as I was preparing to interview for today, I was listening to an interview you gave about Saint Francis. And I remember part of the clip you explained how at some point there were 30 people or so in the church, 30 to 50 maybe, and growing it from what it was to 3 services to over 2,000 people. And part of building and growing that being music, being worship, being just infusing life. And that for me, I think, takes a certain kind of leadership that presses through, like you said, that knows the goal, the vision, the call, and says, we will do it. Yes, there's resistance, but we will still do it.
Exactly. And it is not from the people who do not mean well. They mean well, but in their understanding.
Yes.
So, in their understanding, they thought at the time, that we could conform to what was happening. We would maintain the what was happening. And there I was, introducing something new. And by the way, the musicians in that church, all the musicians had to resign.
Yes.
The musicians of the church had to resign. And I remained with non-musical people.
Yes.
I remember the person when we would start singing new songs, who would play for us, he knew only the chords, and the organist had stepped out.
Yes.
Because he said, this is not music.
Yes.
And therefore, we brought in slowly by slowly, the young people who came, especially from Budo and Gayaza, they had more music in their background, and we improved.
Yes.
From that.
Yeah.
And that was no return. Yeah.
So now, as we start to think about and walk towards your transition out, your retirement, when did that journey start? You said you retired in 2008, but when did you start to walk towards that towards that date, as a person, as a family, as a church? What was that journey like?
It was a challenging journey. In that my father had retired, but I didn't understand what that meant. I was young, I was still young. And he didn't stay long after his retirement. He died soon after. But the journey of retirement started when I knew that I would reach somewhere at the age of 65, and I wouldn't pass that. And that
because
is
you were
about
working in a university,
yeah.
And they required
the university. You retired at 60, but the church at 65.
Okay.
So there was a compromise between the university and the church.
Okay.
But about 10 years prior to that, I started thinking of retirement, particularly in the area of home. After I retire, where we have lived in houses owned by either the university or the church all this time.
Yes.
And therefore, I don't have a house to my name. And I started thinking about retirement. So, because I was very busy, I sent my wife to go to Kabale, our hometown, to find a land, whether we would buy some land where to start building a house for retirement. Some 10 years before. And she went and spent almost a week and couldn't find any place that we could buy to build a home for ourselves. So our idea of going to Kabale, our hometown, when we retire, went that way, out in the air. And we started thinking about here. Now we are living in Kampala. We around Kampala, there could be a place for us to build a home. And all this time, it is not yet the retirement time. And then we acquired a quarter of an acre land in Rweza. And we had saved some money when we lived out of the country. We had saved some money. We bought land in Wakiso. In Wakiso, presently town, but that time it wasn't a town. And we started now thinking about building. Here you are. You don't have enough money for the education of the children, and then you are started thinking about building. It was a difficult time. For me, it was even more challenging than what was physical. I remembered that when I got married, my father-in-law stood in among the relatives on what we call Okwinjira, the day of permission of their daughter to get married to me. And he said that he was giving me his wife,
His daughter.
his daughter, that I should look after her. And here you are. You promised all the man that you are going to look after his daughter, and you are retiring. You have no home. But apart from that, there was something very, very difficult to do at that time. Mention. I had worked in the Church of Uganda for almost 50 years. And I had worked in Makerere University for almost 20 years. So I had gone to the Church of Uganda in anticipation of retirement to find out how much I would be getting as retirement benefits. And I was assured by the Archbishop that nothing was reserved.
As zero.
Zero. He said, he told me that nothing was there for me in the Church of Uganda. And I left. I thought that the university that I was working with would think about me and that now I am going to retire. And I went to the university secretary, who is the chief administrator of the university, and presented my case. Now I am near retirement, I want to know what I am worth in the university as far as my retirement benefits are concerned. And he asked me, he was very kind, he asked me to bring my contract, which I signed 19 years before, and I brought it to his office. And he opened the pages and looked and said, you didn't sign anything about retirement. I said, okay. So the university doesn't owe you anything. Here I am. I have been a faithful minister in the Anglican Church and a faithful minister in the university. And neither the Anglican Church nor the university considered my retirement. And then I have to retire. Anyhow, I have to retire at 65. When it clocks 65, I have to retire. I walked out of his office and he's down the steps back towards the church. I was in many thoughts. I was in many thoughts. And quite some time I was thinking, what am I going to do? What? We have now a piece of land in Wakiso. What are we going to do? You need money to develop it. We have a shack. It was a house built, no windows, nothing, in Lueza. What will happen? And to tell you the truth, very few months went by and I felt my heart wasn't beating normal anymore. I went to the Heart Institute in Namulago and I was advised that unless I changed the way I was living, I would have heart problems. And then I was under treatment and all these kind of things. And I tried to reason with myself what I would happen. But when it came to retirement, I was ready. Why? How was I ready? One, God had helped us. This is how faithful God is. God has helped us complete our house in Lueza. Now we had hoped we would retire in Lueza. At least we have a home there. And then a surprise of surprises, we had completed a home in Wakiso. So,
but when you say surprise, that Uncle Ben, what do you mean?
I mean surprised because you have no money.
Yes.
You have no money, but you say you go ahead.
Yes.
Believing. This is where faith is very, very important.
Okay.
Believing in God that He is going. Let me go back a little bit. As I was struggling with the thought of the older man and his daughter and all this, and as was, what shall we do? How shall we go away from here? It was my wife, Joy, who gave me counsel. Anyone who wants to know my story, you have said it is in my book. When I was drunk, I had nowhere to be. I had no way of living. I didn't know where I was going and where I was coming from. And God picked me on the street, on the road coming from Kisoro to Kabale. And He picked me and saved me. So she said, do you think somebody who brought the village is called Wakaraba? Do you think somebody who picked you from Wakaraba up to today is going to fail to look after us? That was very good counsel. I started trusting more in this God. That's why I say it was a surprise. Because whereas a few years, about 2 years back, was something, we didn't have a home. The university gave us the truck and accepted the truck to drive us to Bokora, our home in Kawale. But we were not going to go there because we had a home in Wakiso. So the truck brought us to our home, although it was muddy outside and everything, but it was a home.
Yes.
It brought us at home, and there we offloaded things in our house.
Yes. Yes.
What a joy it was at that time.
Yes.
What a joy. But to come to that stage,
Yes.
it required faith in God and trusting Him in every detail.
Yes.
Yeah. We called that home the Joy Center. The Joy Center. After my wife.
After your wife. So yes, so amen, you deal with the home
Yeah.
as part of your retirement. How did you prepare? Did you prepare the church for your leaving, or they knew anyway? Chaplains come and go.
No, they knew.
Was there any preparation?
They knew
there?
that chaplains come and go. It's true, chaplains come and go. But my time was rather different. I had, as you said, I had founded the church, which wasn't of any significance. Although it was a university church, but it wasn't any significance. And I felt very, very strongly that this church was a special church. God had established this church at the center of the university for a reason. And the reason was that as the students trained to be leaders in the country, in the world, they are supposed to be prepared to be leaders in the church as well. And I put my effort to raising leaders. So when I am leaving, I have many leaders. Some have already started leadership roles in different places, and others were coming on. So I was leaving a big, big congregation with respect. So then when I was going towards the retirement, I started preparing the congregation to accept the new person who would come after me. I didn't know who it was because it was not in my control. It was in the control of the university and the Archbishop of Uganda to work together and see who would replace me. But my role was to start preparing the community for the next leader.
And what did that involve?
That involved, I took the image from Moses.
Preparing Joshua.
Moses and Joshua and the leadership of the children of Israel. I started seeing what did Moses do. He went to do other things, but Joshua remained in the tent of meeting. So I didn't have anybody who would be remaining in the tent of meeting. I was alone, single leader. So I started telling them that after Moses, there came Joshua. I started leading the congregation to think in terms of a Joshua who is going to come after me. I prepared the leadership of the church, the council, as they were called, the church council. I prepared them in that regard. I prepared everybody in that. Most especially, I started leading the people to know it is their church. It is that because at this time I had the Previously, when I came in, people who graduated went away. But now people who graduated stayed. And therefore, I had the stayees, I would call them. I had people who stayed in the
who, even though they
church.
had finished university, St. Francis was their home church.
It became home church. Then I started showing them how it is their church, what it means to be in the church, their church.
Yeah.
And even when we are building the St. Francis Community Center, it was being built as their church property. And
building a sense of ownership.
Ownership
Yes.
in everybody who was going with St. Francis. And then talk about the person who comes next. He needs their support. It needs to fall on them, their support, their leadership, and he would become the shepherd of them in their work, in their discipleship, in their leadership. Yeah.
Did you prepare the family?
My family, at this time, my family was scattered. I kind of prepared my family when we were coming to Makerere.
Yes.
When we were living in Amerimbe. But it was abrupt. I couldn't. When you work with the people, other people leading you, there are sometimes when you have to take their decisions. This time, the Archbishop of Uganda, whom I was working under, called me in his office on Friday and said what he was going to take me to St. Francis, and I should go and talk to my wife and give them the answer on Monday, or Friday to Monday. I thought that was ridiculous. And I went and talked to my wife, and we agreed that we should ask another question. What if you said no to the Archbishop? No, I'm not going to Makerere. And they said, no, don't. This Archbishop, you never say no to him. So we had no way except to come and introduce it to our children that we were going to Makerere. And the rain and the noise although they had started, some of them had started going to Makerere University for Sunday school because of the love of the person who was leading Sunday school there. But to say that we are going to live in Makerere, we are going to live in Amirembe, leave their friends behind.
Yes.
It was difficult. But we had to agree to bundle them and take them with us. But on leaving Makerere, they were grown.
Okay.
They were grown.
Okay.
And the person, the last child got married before.
Yes.
Before
you left.
just as part of our concluding business in St. Francis. And we went. They went.
Okay.
They went.
So as we wind down, Uncle Ben, I think beautiful lessons that you've pointed to us. One, complete faith in God, because He determines our path. But also that leaders raise leaders. So
it is very important.
Very important, because you cannot leave the space empty. You cannot leave a vacuum where you're leading. So leaders raise leaders, but you also deliberately prepared your congregation for the next, so that process of preparing for the Joshua.
Yeah.
And I think, in fact, you allude to it in your book, that there were several weeks of teaching around, the example of Moses and Joshua.
Yeah.
And then finally, just creating that sense of ownership. This is your thing.
Yeah.
Because often when a leader leaves, people flee with the leader, right? But if you've built that sense of no, this is yours. So you can't leave a thing that is yours, right? So own it, accept it, and then act as the leaders that you are and support the next person that is coming.
Amen. Yeah, that was what was very important for me. And I want to say, studying the Bible, for those of you who are listening in and study the Bible, studying the Bible, you will find out very many models of people who worked with God and who were in leadership and how they took their leadership, and especially the final time they were in leadership. Elijah, for example, Prophet Elijah, prepared his disciple, Elisha, prepared him. And because Elisha knew that Elijah was going to be taken, he glued himself on him.
Yes.
But Elijah said, stay. And he wouldn't stay. And he went away, stay here, and he wouldn't stay. And until the separation happened, miraculously, and the fire, the chariots of fire separated them. And what he remained with was the
cloak.
Yeah, of Elijah, which he took. And that led him to the beginning of his ministry. Because he split the river with it. He pressed against the river and the river opened.
Yes.
Then he knew that God who was with Elijah was with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he doesn't have to have that miraculous things.
Yeah. So finally, if you're talking to a leader that is facing either retirement or an imminent change, coming to an end of a journey, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them from your own journey of transition?
I would say to them that the world continues on without you.
Ouch.
So you better do your part, and do it very well, knowing that you are going. Yeah. Okay? And you're going. And I would say to leaders, especially those who have responsibility and they have the power to control the responsibility, what they are, know that transition happens.
Yeah.
Transition may not be guided by you, but transition will happen.
Yeah.
So you better guide your transition, your outing. You better guide your outing and find out the people who are going to follow, some Joshuas who are going to take on the leadership once you have stepped aside, and then you will be comfortable. You will go to you will end your time in comfort,
Yes.
knowing that what I did, and and handed over to the people who are following me.
Yes.
But it is difficult to say what I was going to say. Don't stay as if you are the only leader available, whom God has chosen to lead those people, or the organization you are leading, or whatever you are leading. No. God has many, many people. You may be sitting on the leaders who are coming next to you. They will eventually move over and let you fall.
As the Bible, Saleh, stop and think on these things. Uncle Ben, thank you so much for being our first guest. Thank you for the well of wisdom. Thank you for enabling us walk in your footprints as you shared your journey. And thank you for the nuggets that you have left along the way for us. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to you listening to our next episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.